Yeah, I mean, you have to factor it in. I mean, to your point, we were fortunate that Caitlin was able to get some gameplay and, very casually got back on the court and won the MVP at the qualifier. So happy for her. She's looked great. She's worked incredibly hard to be in a good spot from the first day of training camp. But to your point, Sophie and Ty have not played in game action. So
listen to those words carefully. We don't want to overload someone coming back from injury. But here's what Amber Cox isn't saying in that interview with Indy Star. Caitlin Clark's plantar fasciitis happened in March 2024. She's played an entire Olympic qualifying tournament since then, won MVP, and looked completely healthy. So why is the Indiana Fever's general manager suddenly talking about minutes restrictions for their franchise player?
I think, one of the learnings from last year was we don't want to play players 40 minutes every night.
Okay, but listen, that goes directly to Caitlin Clark. Sophie Cunningham was never playing 40 minutes a night when the team was healthy. Sophie Cunningham was coming off the bench, shooting threes, being an enforcer, playing defense. Sophie Cunningham was playing like maybe 20 minutes a game for real. That is strictly about Caitlin Clark, who was playing 31 minutes a game and stuff like that.
There it is, the real target of this policy. Sophie Cunningham never played 40 minutes a night in Phoenix. She averaged 22 minutes per game as a bench enforcer. Ty Harris is a rookie who's never played a WNBA game. But Caitlin Clark? She logged 35.7 minutes per game last season, leading the Fever to their first playoff appearance since 2016. And now they want to cut that down. This isn't about injury prevention. The Fever signed 8 guards this offseason. 8! They drafted Raven Johnson 10th overall when Dominique Malonga, a 6'4" forward from France, was still on the board. The team that finished 27th in the league in rebounds per game decided they needed another point guard instead of size.
We have a few back-to-backs, and even when they aren't back-to-backs, we're playing every other day just about. So being able to create a rotation that does have some depth. We have a lot of versatility in this group. I'm really excited about that, so that we're fresh when we get to the playoffs. And Kelsey Mitchell's wheels don't fall off this time. That's the goal. I think that was really a point of emphasis in this free agency, to make sure that we were really smart about ensuring the health and well-being of our players throughout the course of the season.
Do y'all think A'ja Wilson is about to be on some sort of minutes restriction? Do y'all think that? No, she's going to be going for another MVP, going for another championship. Meanwhile, we got these people talking about limiting our best players and all of this stuff. Like, bro, listen, man, listen. If y'all are trying to use last season's Caitlin Clark injury as a reason to limit her minutes, I'm not rolling, and we're not going to win games like that. Like, y'all, come on, bro. Y'all trying to justify it as Raven Johnson.
Cox is selling this as depth, as smart roster management, as learning from last season's mistakes. But let's examine what actually happened in the 2024 playoffs. The Fever lost to the Connecticut Sun in 2 games. Caitlin Clark averaged 33 minutes in those playoff games and shot 43% from 3. Kelsey Mitchell averaged 34 minutes and put up 21 points per game. The problem wasn't fatigue. The problem was Aaliyah Boston getting out-rebounded and the Fever having 0 interior defense. So the front office response was to bring in more guards and talk about reducing their best players' minutes. Meanwhile, A'ja Wilson played 34.2 minutes per game for Las Vegas last season and won her 3rd MVP. Breanna Stewart logged 33.8 minutes for New York. Nobody's talking about restrictions for them.
Last night, I really didn't expect Raven to be there. She was someone that, I kind of had in that 4, 5, 6 range. I think
malpractice. You are the only person that had her in the 4. You are the only person who thought that. Nobody else thought Raven Johnson was going to be a top 4 pick. Have you lost your mind? It's like, come on, bro.
A guard like her that can come in and run a team with great leadership, great competitive drive. Obviously on the defensive end of the floor is really, really elite already. And then you see how her game has grown, shot almost 40% from 3-point this year. I mean, we just really loved everything about her. So when she was sitting there at 10, of course we were going to take her.
This is where the justification falls apart completely. Amber Cox just said she had Raven Johnson rated as a top 5 pick, a 4, 5, 6 range pick. Go back and check every mock draft from January through April 2025. Not one analyst had Johnson in the top 5. ESPN had her at 14. The Athletic had her at 12. She was a defensive specialist with a 38% three-point shot in her senior year, which is solid but not elite. Cox is retroactively inflating Johnson's draft stock to justify a pick that doesn't fit the team's needs. The Fever needed rim protection, rebounding, and a backup center behind Aaliyah Boston. Instead, they took their fourth point guard.
So our coach has a chance to figure out where they're going to put her in the rotation.
There was other options at the 10 spot. And I'm not, listen, man, I'm going to root for Raven Johnson because she's a part of the team. But there were other options. This team lacks size. This team lacks size tremendously, y'all. Like, Dantas being the go-to backup center. This team lacks size, man. We could have gotten some size. We could have gotten some more shooting. Listen, all right.
Amber, what did you get reviews-wise from Dawn Staley and then even Aaliyah Boston, one of Raven's former teammates there from South Carolina?
I think just competitive drive and leadership, and then, you know, her just desire to continue to improve, and she wants to win. I think when you're playing in the SEC night in and night.
Here's the real concern buried in that answer. Dawn Staley praised Raven Johnson's competitiveness and defense. Those are valuable traits. But notice what Cox emphasizes: leadership from day one. A player who wants to guard the best opponent every night. That's the profile of someone who's going to demand playing time immediately. The Fever now have Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, Ty Harris, Sophie Cunningham, and Raven Johnson all competing for backcourt minutes. That's 6 guards for 2 starting spots and maybe 20 minutes of bench time. The math doesn't work unless someone's minutes get cut significantly. And it's not going to be Kelsey Mitchell, who just re-signed for $85,000 and is a free agent after this season.
Listen to you, lead us. And she said she carried that with her throughout her 4 years, and really took that to heart. And I love that. And she's just so competitive. I mean, you see her in the semifinal versus UConn guarding Sarah Strong. I mean, that is one of the things, you know, we heard consistently from Dawn and the coaching staff is, you know, she wants to guard the best player every single night. Like, she's up for the challenge. So again, that competitive drive is something that you cannot teach, coupled with obviously elite defensively and continuing to improve on the offensive end of the ball. We feel like she's got a really bright future here with us in Indiana.
Watch how Cox frames this. She's comparing Caitlin Clark's return to a free agency signing, like the Fever added a major piece to their roster. But that framing reveals the problem. They're treating their generational talent like she needs to fit into their system instead of building the system around her. The best backcourt in the league last season. That's what Cox called Clark and Mitchell. And her solution is to limit their time together on the court. The Fever averaged 104.3 points per 100 possessions with Clark on the floor last season. That number dropped to 92.7 with her on the bench. Every minute she sits is a minute the offense collapses.
Generational, special talent. And so, of course, like, we're thrilled to have her back on the floor, leading the charge for us. Obviously, the backcourt of Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark the year prior really started to pick up steam towards the end of the year and was the best in the league. So now that, you know, Kelsey has had another tremendous year under her belt, Caitlin is back healthy, has been working so hard and looks great. We're just excited to see the two of them, you know, lead our backcourt again.
There's the word again, reintegrate. Like, Caitlin Clark is coming back from a 2-year absence instead of a 4-month offseason. She played 5 games in Puerto Rico in January, averaging 28 points and 8 assists while shooting 41% from 3. She looked faster, stronger, and more confident than she did at any point last season. There's nothing to reintegrate. But the Fever keep using injury language, keep talking about appropriate ramp-up periods, and managing workloads. It's the same rhetoric teams use when they don't trust a player's body. Except Clark's body held up fine through 38 Iowa games, 40 WNBA games, and 5 Olympic qualifying games in a 12-month span. Here's what makes this decision so significant. The WNBA is entering a critical expansion phase. Golden State and Toronto join the league in 2026, Portland in 2027. That means an expansion draft where every team can protect 6 players. The Fever will obviously protect Clark, Mitchell, and Boston. But the other 3 spots, those depend on who proves valuable this season. By limiting Clark's minutes and spreading playing time across 8 guards, the Fever are auditioning replacements. They're preparing for the possibility that Mitchell walks in free agency or gets expansion drafted. They're building depth instead of maximizing their championship window, and that's a fundamental philosophical mistake. Championship teams in the WNBA don't win with depth, they win with top-end talent playing heavy minutes. Las Vegas won the 2023 title with Aja Wilson, Chelsea Gray, and Kelsey Plum all playing 30-plus minutes per game. New York made the finals in 2024 with Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu logging 33 minutes nightly. Depth matters in the regular season. Stars matter in the playoffs. The Fever went 20-20 last season, sneaking into the playoffs as the 6th seed. They got swept in the first round. The response should have been to maximize Caitlin Clark's impact, surround her with shooters and defenders who complement her game, and add size to fix the rebounding problem. Instead, they added more guards and started talking about limiting her minutes. Let's talk about what Amber Cox didn't mention in that interview: the Fever's attendance numbers. Indiana averaged 17,135 fans per home game last season, the highest in franchise history. Caitlin Clark games on ESPN averaged 1.4 million viewers. Road games in Indiana drew sellout crowds in arenas that had been half empty the year before. Clark isn't just the Fever's best player. She's their entire business model. And now they want to play her 28 minutes a night instead of 36. That's 8 fewer minutes of the player fans paid to see. 8 fewer minutes of the offense that made Indiana watchable for the first time in a decade. The Fever averaged 84.7 points per game in 2023 before Clark arrived. They jumped to 90.1 in 2024. That increase came entirely from Clark's playmaking and shooting gravity. Here's the other issue nobody's addressing. Caitlin Clark is on a $76,000 rookie contract through 2027. She's the most underpaid player in professional basketball relative to her value. The least the Fever can do is let her play. Instead, they're treating her like a fragile asset that needs to be managed and protected. That's not how you develop a 23-year-old superstar. That's how you waste her prime years. Think about the position this puts Caitlin in. She's too professional to publicly complain about minutes restrictions, but we saw how she reacted last season when Christy Sides subbed her out of close games. The frustration was visible. She's a competitor who wants to be on the floor in every crucial possession. And now her own front office is telling reporters they plan to limit her impact. What happens when the Fever are fighting for playoff seeding in August and Clark is sitting on the bench watching Raven Johnson run the offense? What happens when they lose close games because their best player only played 26 minutes? The tension that creates between coaching staff, front office, and franchise player can fracture a locker room. And here's the thing about beat reporters and GM interviews. Amber Cox chose to reveal this information to the Indy Star in April, a month before training camp. That's not an accident, that's a public relations strategy. She's setting expectations so that when Clark plays reduced minutes in May, the fan base has already been conditioned to accept it. It's damage control before the damage happens, but WNBA fans aren't stupid. They watched Clark drag Iowa to back-to-back national championship games while playing 35 minutes per night. They watched her transform the Fever from a lottery team to a playoff team in one season. They know what she's capable of when the shackles come off, and they're not going to accept a minutes restriction based on a year-old injury that's clearly healed. Scott Agnes and Chloe Peterson did their job in that interview. They asked direct questions about roster construction and got revealing answers. What Amber Cox revealed, intentionally or not, is that the Fever are more concerned with managing risk than maximizing talent. They're playing it safe instead of going all in on their generational player. Watch that initial answer again about not wanting to overload players coming back from injury. Cox groups Caitlin Clark with Sophie Cunningham and Ty Harris like they're all in the same situation. But Cunningham is a 30-year-old role player coming off knee soreness. Harris is an undrafted rookie. Clark is a 23-year-old MVP candidate who's already proven she can handle a full workload. Treating them the same is organizational malpractice. Now compare that to how other teams treat their franchise players. Las Vegas gives Aja Wilson complete freedom to dominate games. New York built their entire system around Breanna Stewart's versatility. Connecticut lets Alyssa Thomas play 36 minutes and control every aspect of the game. Those teams understand that elite talent is rare and must be maximized, not managed. The contrast reveals something important about organizational philosophy. The Fever are still operating like a small market team trying to compete through smart roster construction and depth. But they have a superstar now. The rules change when you have a player like Caitlin Clark. You don't fit her into your system. You build the system around her and let her cook. Amber Cox talked about learning from last season's mistakes, but the lesson she took was exactly wrong. The mistake wasn't playing Clark too many minutes. The mistake was not surrounding her with enough shooting, not giving her a legitimate backup center, and not running an offense that maximized her playmaking. Those are fixable problems that don't require reducing her impact. This dynamic is going to define the Fever season. Either Christy Sides ignores the front office's minutes restriction plan and plays Clark 35 minutes because that's what gives them the best chance to win, or she follows organizational directive and caps her at 28 minutes while Raven Johnson gets developmental reps. Those two paths lead to very different outcomes. So the question becomes, was this roster construction worth it? The Fever could have drafted size, signed a veteran rim protector, and run back the core that made the playoffs. Instead, they added guard depth to justify a minutes restriction for their best player. In 2 months, we'll know if that decision was organizational wisdom or organizational sabotage. My money's on the latter. Drop your take in the comments, hit subscribe, and let's see if the Fever come to their senses before they waste another year of Caitlin Clark's prime.